Marco Rubio is a person who's often talked about as potentially running for the Republican nomination for the presidency in the next presidential cycle. He was on with Neil Cavuto. They're talking about the situation with ISIS and speculating about what Marco Rubio would do if he were to be president. Let's watch.
If you ever became president, if you ever had the interest, Senator, would you advocate a permanent U.S. troop presence in the region? Permanent.
Absolutely. Let me give you two examples of why. Number one, the Al-Qaeda mission, the mission to target bin Laden would have been impossible without a U.S. troop mission in Afghanistan. Second, you've seen what's happened in Iraq, and people think that having troops on the ground would have prevented ISIL's advances. To some extent that's true, but there's another aspect to it. When the U.S. pulled out of Iraq, it allowed Maliki, then the prime minister, to go whole hog on his persecution of Sunnis, which then created fertile ground for the sort of insurgency we now see. So I'm not saying 100,000 troops, but certainly some level that allows us to project power quickly and confront challenges and threats.
Look, there are a lot of problems in what he just said right there, but I want to start at the end, basically. He says, I'm not saying 100,000 troops, and what he's doing there is what every single Republican that I've seen talk, even tangentially, about how we would respond to ISIS has done. They keep saying we should be doing more. What Barack Obama is doing is not enough, but none of them will ever say what we're supposed to do. They keep saying we don't support troops on the ground either because they know that that's still an extremely unpopular position for the American public. They're saying there should be troops somewhere, sometime, but how many and where and how are we going to pay for them? If strikes aren't enough, what would you do beyond strikes? This is a guy who wants to be president someday and refuses to even say why he disagrees with a man who he says is criminally or perhaps treasonously unfit to be president. Mm-hmm. He won't lay out one meaningful distinction between his theoretical policy and Barack Obama's policy. Look, I don't have the solution, and I often say that, but I also don't say that secretly I have the solution, and if you elect me to president, then I will lay it out. Yeah. He doesn't have any more of a clue than I do.
Don't we already have a permanent military presence in
That's
the
a very
Middle
good point. Let's show this map, actually. Apparently, Marco Rubio and Neil Cavuto have no idea that we have and have had a permanent military presence in the Middle East for decades and decades. That's just one little screenshot showing the bases that we have and maintained for decades in Bahrain, the UAE, Oman, throughout near Dubai, bases in Saudi Arabia, in Kuwait. We have a massive military presence in the Middle East, if only as a consequence of the fact that the U.S. has had a massive military presence around the entire globe since World War II. We have over 300,000 troops at present stationed in hundreds of bases throughout the world, and they're acting as if it would be a good idea. Maybe we should send an aircraft carrier to the Middle East at some point. That guy wants to be president. He doesn't know the most basic facts about the current military deployment of the U.S. around the globe.
But that's the beauty of America's system, John. In the Constitution, we have the First Amendment, freedom of the press, right? So I'm sure Luke Russert is going to point out all those inaccuracies when he interviews him and completely cut him down on the knees, and that guy will be discredited as a potential presidential candidate because that's what the media is there to do, right? Yeah. Oh, no, I'm sorry. What they'll do is repeat his bogus bullshit talking points. And then
they don't want to seem biased.
And they don't want to seem biased. They're going to, as Anna taught me, they're going to mistake neutrality for objectivity is what exactly is going to happen, and we will get nowhere. So that's the way people tune in. I saw Luke Russert the other day talking about the Benghazi hearings for 5 minutes, and he never told you what they were about. He just kept repeating what the Republicans said
or what
they
the
were about.
Final report said.
He didn't even do that. He goes, well, they're going to answer some questions that have already been asked in 7 other hearings, but I guess we haven't confirmed any of those answers. Yeah. Anyway, we're getting off topic, but it's, again, the failing of the news media.
I don't think that's off topic. I think that is perfectly applicable.
It's, again, it's a failing of the news media. He's allowed to say this stuff. They're all allowed to do these things. They're allowed to, Barack Obama's allowed to come out and start doing the exact thing that got us in this fucked up situation, which is bombing countries and people that we don't have any knowledge of.
Well, the reason why Rubio in this particular case hasn't been challenged is because he feeds into the narrative that's always pushed out by Fox News, right? They want their very paranoid, very impressionable, very uneducated audience to think, hey, look at this politician. The Republicans, they have it right. They're going to protect you from national security. Obama, he's weak, even though he expanded on Bush-era policies, and he's doing exactly what Bush has done, if not more. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's good for their ratings. It feeds into what their audience wants to hear. He's not going to be challenged on that news outlet. What I would find fascinating is if someone like Marco Rubio came on a show like this, where he knows he's going to be asked the tough questions. Probably not. right?
Yeah,
So
probably not. You're exactly right. He's not going to go on with George Snuffleupagus and get his feet held to the fire. Maybe if he was a drunk ex-basketball player, he would get his feet held to the fire. But if he's a politician, George Snuffleupagus will just let him say whatever he wants and then throw in a commercial. Thanks for coming. I appreciate the debate. See you at the Christmas party at the Rumsfelds.
Yeah. I acknowledge that you lied many times. Hopefully every single potential American voter goes to PolitiFact every day, because they're the only ones who seem to care about it. And then finally, to a little bit more of the substance of what he was saying, he acknowledges that something led to ISIS, but the way he puts it, it is the U.S. pulling troops out of Iraq helped lead to the fertile ground for the sort of insurgency that we now see.
No.
Which is sort of true, but thankfully we can look back more than a couple of years, and we know that the U.S. troops going into Iraq and then pulling out led to the fertile ground.
Thank you. Yes. I mean, I love how he's pretending as though the reason why this happened and the sole reason why this happened was because we pulled troops out of Iraq. No, our actions led to the aggression against us, right? It led to the development, the recruitment, the expansion of these types of terror groups, right? When you're killing innocent people abroad, they want to fight back, so they join these terrorist groups. That's what you're seeing now. It'll continue to happen. If you don't believe it, well, just sit tight, because we're going to be in a war like this for a very long time.